In the National Museum of Iraq, tucked away among pottery shards, clay tablets, and bronze relics from the cradle of civilization, there once sat a small clay jar. To most people, it looked ordinary, even dull. A faded ceramic container with a hollow interior, a copper cylinder inside, and an iron rod down the middle. But this little object, barely the size of a modern soda can, may just be one of the strangest archaeological finds in the world. Because some people believe that this object, which has come to be known as the Baghdad Battery, is not just a jar. They believe it might have been an ancient electrical device, a battery made over 2,000 years ago, long before electricity was thought to be discovered. Could this simple-looking artifact be proof that ancient people understood and used electricity? Or is it just a misunderstood container, misread by modern minds looking for something amazing? In this video, we'll explore what we really know about the Baghdad Battery, the facts, the tests, the mysteries, and what it tells us about how advanced ancient civilizations may have been. The story begins in the 1930s, during a period of intense excavation in the Middle East. Iraq, the site of ancient Mesopotamia, was full of ruins from civilizations thousands of years old: the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Parthians. In 1936, a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig was working as the director of the Baghdad Museum. During a dig at a site called Qujat Rabu, just outside modern-day Baghdad, workers uncovered a number of strange objects. Among them was the small clay jar that would become the center of so much controversy. Koenig was intrigued. The jar was about 5 inches tall. Inside it was a tightly rolled copper cylinder, and within that an iron rod. There was also evidence of an asphalt-like seal at the top, keeping the contents secure and preventing leakage. At first glance, it didn't seem like much. But Koenig, who had some background in chemistry and had seen similar metallic arrangements in batteries, began to wonder if it was more than it appeared. The jar was dated to sometime between 250 BCE and 225 CE, during the Parthian era. The Parthians were an empire that ruled much of modern-day Iran and Iraq, known for their military skills and for blending Greek, Persian, and local cultures. They were not especially known for technological inventions, but if Koenig was right, then they might have discovered something that wouldn't be reinvented until the 1800s: electricity. Let's take a closer look at how the Baghdad Battery is built. The object itself is made from a small, narrow clay pot. The copper cylinder inside is formed by rolling a thin sheet of copper into a tube. Suspended in the middle of that tube is a single iron rod. The rod is held in place by asphalt, which seals off the top of the cylinder and keeps the two metals from touching. Koenig believed that if an acidic liquid like vinegar or lemon juice was poured into the jar, it could create an electric charge. In modern batteries, this is exactly how electricity is made. Two different metals, an electrolyte between them, and a chemical reaction that moves electrons from one metal to the other. It seemed to follow the basic principles of electrochemistry. But there was a problem. No electrolyte liquid was found in the jar, nor were any written records about such devices discovered. And the object wasn't alone. Similar jars with the same setup were found nearby. Some didn't even contain all the same materials. Still, Koenig became convinced that this could be the world's oldest known battery. In 1940, Koenig published his theory in a paper. Most scholars ignored it, but in the decades that followed, others took notice. Researchers and tinkerers started building replicas of the Baghdad Battery to see if it could really generate electricity. One of the first major experiments was done in the 1970s by an American named Willard Gray. He worked at the General Electric High Voltage Laboratory in Massachusetts. Gray built a replica of the battery using similar materials, a clay jar, a copper sheet, and an iron rod, and filled it with grape juice. To his surprise, it produced a small electric current, around half a volt. Later tests by other scientists used lemon juice, vinegar, or wine as the acidic electrolyte. Some replicas produced up to 1.1 volts. It wasn't much, just enough to power a tiny light or maybe deliver a mild shock, but it was real electricity from an ancient-looking jar. Then, in 2003, the Discovery Channel ran an episode of Mythbusters testing the Baghdad Battery. They built several replicas and linked them together in a series, just like modern batteries are sometimes stacked. The result? They produced enough power to run a small digital clock and generate noticeable electrical output. So the physical setup could work as a battery. But that led to another question. If it could, does that mean it was used that way? The Baghdad Battery theory has captured the public imagination for nearly a century. It's been featured in documentaries, books, YouTube channels, and even conspiracy theories. Why? Because it suggests something exciting, the idea that ancient civilizations may have been far more advanced than we give them credit for. Maybe they knew things that were lost, secrets hidden in time. Maybe there was a forgotten branch of science that vanished with the collapse of ancient empires. It's the same idea that makes people wonder about the pyramids, Stonehenge, or the Antikythera mechanism. Could our ancestors have known more than we think? The truth is, the Baghdad Battery sits in a kind of gray area. It could work as a battery. People have proven that. But whether it was used that way is a question we may never fully answer. Unfortunately, seeing the original Baghdad Battery today is difficult and may not even be possible. Many of the artifacts in the Baghdad Museum were looted or damaged during the Iraq War in the early 2000s. It's unclear whether the original battery was among the lost items. Some sources claim it was taken. Others say it was returned or hidden for protection. What survives are photographs, drawings, and written descriptions from before the chaos. Thankfully, detailed notes and replica experiments continue to preserve the battery's story. So did ancient people know about electricity? If the Baghdad Battery was truly used to generate power, then yes, at least in some basic form. But without written records, without connected devices, and without more context, the truth remains out of reach. Still, this little jar, barely 5 inches tall, has done something incredible. It's made people look again at the past to ask new questions, to imagine new possibilities, and to see ancient people not as primitives but as problem solvers, thinkers, inventors. The Baghdad Battery might not be proof that ancient civilizations had smartphones or power grids, but it is proof of one thing: curiosity never dies. Whether in 250 BCE or today, people are always trying to understand the world, to experiment, and to push the limits of what's possible. And sometimes, just sometimes, a dusty old jar can change the way we think about everything.